So just to start, you've worked on every Thor film. How has the process of designing such a dynamic character, especially with the tonal shift and his various developments over time, how has that been?
It's been it's been so much fun because I think not only is it fun being able to take the inspiration from the amazing geniuses from Jack Kirby to Steve Ditko, Stan Lee, all the creators throughout the decades, but be able to work with different filmmakers, right? We have the leadership in Marvel and the geniuses there from Kevin Feige on Victoria Alonso, Luis D'Esposito, and all the producers. But then, for each Thor film, there's a different director, right? No, except for the last two, right? With Taika. So they're all going to have their own voice. So even though it's the same character, there's nuances. Obviously, we saw that big shift from the first two Thors to when Taika came on. And yeah, that's been a lot of fun, especially when Taika came on. Then it's just like he just completely rocked the boat in a good way, where it just made it so fresh, and it felt like a lot of times when we work on a new character, it's like, oh, it's so fun to create from the ground up. Like when working on Guardians of the Galaxy, we're helping to establish, this world, this corner of the MCU that has never been mined yet, in that kind of cosmic, crazy world. With Thor, we've kind of been there with Asgard, but once Taika came, it's kind of like, oh, it felt like a new character again that we're trying to establish with the look, the tone, the character, the visuals. So yeah, it's been so much fun to be able to be a part of like his kind of journey and his evolution.
Awesome. And in Love and Thunder, Gorr looks a bit different than he does in the comic. How did you go about altering that design while still maintaining his characteristics?
Yeah, when it comes to any character we design, again, we always go back to the comics first. So a lot of times, because we're an in-house department of artists that are here full time, we get to work really early on. A lot of times, for the most part, we're working at the same time that they're writing the script. So a lot of times, nothing's established yet. So the only thing that's established is that they want Gorr to be like the main villain, or at least they're thinking about Gorr. So that's when we're off to the races. So myself, as well as the other artists that are here in the visual development department, as well as we hire freelancers. I'll task them to like do different versions, and they're like, "Oh, so do you have any information on them?" I'm like, "Look at the comic," because there's no information yet. Besides that they want to use that character. So the nuances we'll learn as we go, and that'll help um, influence our decisions and our designs. So in the beginning, it tends to be quite comic accurate. We're going to be doing the tendril that it comes on the side and making him a little bit more alien and without the nose, and the proportions to be like what Isad Ribic, the comic book artist, designed in the comic book series. And then as we start having conversations with the filmmakers, with Taika in this case, then we'll start finding out about like who Gorr is, his backstory, how it gets betrayed, and then soon after that, then we find out casting. So usually we're doing designs even before we know the casting. So once we found out about Christian Bale, then we're like, oh wow, that's awesome, that's awesome. And then pretty much after finding that out, that's when we're told that they want to see versions and explore where we're not going to lose his performance. We're not going to lose when you get an actor like Christian Bale. We don't want to hide that. So we started taking a lot of designs that we've already done, creating new ones as well, and implementing Christian Bale's face in there. And the other reason is because there's a lot of characters that have been out there in other franchises that doesn't have the nose, or has these tendrils, from like Star Wars to like the Harry Potter, Voldemort, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things that when you design things these days, it's almost like what hasn't been done. So you have to kind of navigate that, where it's like it feels too much like something, then it's like, okay, let's steer away from that. So yeah, it's a journey to kind of to find and finally land on that design. But
Yeah, that makes
I'd like to mention that our amazing artist John Staub, one of our in-house biz dev artists, did that final design that you see in the film.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I really like the design as well. And so another character is Russell Crowe's Zeus, who he has a design that's kind of like half mythical and intimidating and half really funny. So what was the process of designing him like?
That one was designed by our amazing costume designer, Myers Rubio. So we have a great collaboration between Viz Dev department and the costume department. And in that one, she was able to, with her artist, take a lot of the gods that you see in that, what was that place called? Omnipotent City. Yeah, so she was able to really just run with it and have fun. And you know, I had a real a great time seeing the designs that they were doing. You know, because it is treading that line between like coming with something that's epic, that's worthy of Zeus, but then it's, you know, slightly comical, right? So I thought she did a great job.
Yeah, for sure. And so recently, your art provided everyone with their first look at Kang's more comic-esque design in the Quantumania art. What was it like to essentially showcase the next Thanos?
Um, that I mean, working on that project was a lot of fun. You know, like I led the Viz Dev team on that one, and being able to tackle. I've worked on all the Ant-Man films. The first Ant-Man film I led was Ant-Man and the Wasp, and so be able to come back and work with Peyton Reed yet again, that was so much fun. And to be able to introduce a character like Kang, I had a team of amazing artists. A guy named Konstantin Sakaris did the final concept design of that, and then being able to, and Sammy Sheldon and Ivo Coveney did the final Kang that you can see the costume. But yeah, it's always, especially an iconic character like Kang, right? Like growing up reading Marvel comics, you know, that was one of the, you know, there are certain characters that, you know, these are big characters, main
Yeah.
villains that the Avengers characters have always butted heads with. So Kang, you knew it was going to come eventually. So I can't wait for you and everyone to be able to see what they've come up, what we've all come up with, because it's an amazing visual, but it's also just what Jonathan, what's his name, Majors, his performance and what the script writers and what Peyton has brought out in these actors and in these characters. It's going to be something special.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that. And in a similar vein, your Thunderbolts art is really great, and it was recently shown off, and it really shows off the characters' personalities. How difficult was it to kind of stylistically unite all these characters from different projects and phases?
That part is always fun because like that, I think that's kind of the magic, the key component to the MCU that Kevin Feige, when he whenever that moment was when he decided like, okay, we're going to create an interconnected universe of all these disparate characters, and then they're going to all have their own films, and they don't necessarily have to feel like the same thing. It could be completely different from each other, but we're going to find a way to bring them together in like the Avengers, the very first film where all these disparate characters came together, right? So to be able to wait, sorry, I'm losing track. Sorry, can you say what you ask your question again?
Yeah. So the Thunderbolts art's really great.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
How
yeah,
was it? Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
how was it
Sorry.
to kind of take all those different phases and characters from different projects and kind of put them together?
Yeah, because that's where the fun is. Because you know, when you see that lineup, that image that I illustrated, like while I was painting it, it's really fun because at that point that I was painting it, like we already had the Black Widow film, so we got introduced to Yelena and Alexei, the Red Guardian, as well as Taskmaster, and we know where they where they ended up in that film, you know. So it always begs the question, like, you know, like what's next, you know, what's gonna happen? Taskmaster is now, no, you know, now that she realizes and all that stuff, all the questions that come up, and then you watch Falcon and Winter Soldier, and then, you know, that's where Bucky is, and that's where U.S. Agent is, and there's always tension there. And obviously we know all the stories of Bucky from obviously Captain America to Civil War, to Winter Soldier to Civil War onward, and all the Avengers films. And then you see Val being introduced in all the, you know, she's kind of like in a similar way to how we saw Sam Jackson, you know, Nick Fury in the early days. So then to see them all and then Ghost, you mentioned Ghost, so that's kind of in the Ant-Man world, and seeing how her story ended. So to take all that and bring them together as one team, it reminded me very much in the early days when I was working at Marvel Studios 12 years ago when we're working on the Avengers. Because I'm like, oh, these different characters, disparate characters, right? That don't necessarily seem like they belong. And then to see them come together and you get to imagine like, oh wow, the interactions are gonna be fun, how they fight and whatever they're gonna end up doing, that's therein lies like the fun. Because you're like, just like in Avengers, like how is a god going to interact with someone like Tony Stark, who's very, snarky, but also like Earth science based. So in the same way, in a different way, we're going to see that with Thunderbolts, seeing all these different characters from different franchises coming together, and it's a different type of, team up film that we, haven't seen. We've seen team ups, but mainly it's always been Avengers, right? Avengers. So it's gonna be a fun one.